Welcome to Fearless Females, where ambition meets resilience. Meet your guide, Lorie Jones, owner of Fearless Financial Advisors. Join her and remarkable women executives as they uncover the triumphs and transformative moments shaping extraordinary careers. Ready to be fearless? Let the journey begin.
Good morning, and thank you again for joining us here today on Fearless Females. Today we're talking with Rose, and she made me laugh. I always ask the question about what is some of the worst advice you've ever gotten? And sometimes I laugh at the answers. Sometimes I cry at the answers. But this time she said, I've gotten an answer that I've never gotten before. She said, some of the worst advice I've ever gotten came from me. And that stopped me just a little bit and took me aback. And she said, it was that voice in your head that tells you that you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're just not enough. She said, and during times of particular challenge, like some being diagnosed with cancer or during divorce, during those really hard challenges, she was listening to that voice in her head that told her that she would never be enough. And she talked about how sometimes the most dangerous voice isn't those from outside, but those from inside, those that you tell yourself, because you listen to those a little bit more. You feel it, and it's the story that you tell yourself. And I thought that was so insightful and interesting that if somebody else is giving you that bad advice, you can say, no, you're not right. You don't know me. And you can fight that. But if it's yourself, sometimes you feel small and say, well, maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I'm not smart enough. Maybe I can't do this, because it's you that's giving you this message. And I thought that was so, so interesting. So I hope that this episode really resonates with you and you really feel her grit and her true, authentic person that Rose is and how she's coming to us. So let's get started. Good morning, Fearless Females. So today we're here with Rose Arendarczyk. She is the founder and CEO of GiftEase. And I really appreciate you coming on the show today, Rose, to share your story. Thank you so much.
Lorie, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
So my first question is always, I'm a reader. I love reading. Give me your favorite book.
This one's a tough one for me. I actually consume a lot of books, mostly through Audible and Spotify. Since the beginning of the year, I've had more than several titles that I've gone through. One, though, that sticks out to me from some years ago is A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. It's just a poignant, heartfelt, heartbreaking story that has just stuck with me. It just resonates when I think about wow, what's really touched me in terms of, content. So I would recommend that. And then the other thing I think of is on a business front, I just picked up and started reading Hooked. It's about habit forming products and how to develop those. And it's extremely relevant in where I am today with GiftEase and my journey.
Oh, yeah. Is that by Heath? Is that Dan Heath that read that?
It's Nir Eyal, Eyal. And he's got a 4-part framework for developing habits for people when you're introducing a product.
Oh, I'm so interested. That sounds so interesting. Both of those sound like really good suggestions. So thank you. You've made my book pile a little bit larger.
Oh.
So tell me a little bit about your journey. How did you get started? Kind of, did you always know what you wanted to be? How did your journey go? And what are you doing today? Tell me a little bit about you, Rose.
Yeah, I didn't always know what I wanted to do. In college, I was a business major, operations management, international business. I studied abroad in France to broaden my horizons. Coming out of school, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And I actually bet this is back in the days when we didn't have really broad access to internet. We didn't have, cell phones. I went to the career fair at Penn State, and we would walk around, and all, different companies who were recruiting were there, and there was a strong presence from consulting firms. And as I thought more about what next for me, consulting appealed to me because it would allow me to work in a variety of industries and companies and just see and learn. And I thought, you know what, that's a good entry point. And then I'll figure out from there what I think I want to pursue. So that's what took me into consulting. And then I worked in consulting for a majority of my career. I'd say probably almost maybe 15 years. And then the latter 10, I moved into industry. And that was a direct result of seeing and learning through the changes in projects and clients I was working with from a consulting standpoint. And in fact, I made a move to one of my clients she was building out her organization and had a leader role that I put my name in the hat for. And so that's what took me into what I call industry leadership roles, which is where I've spent my time over the last 10 years, focused on, driving, leading strategic change, enterprise transformation, lots of technology initiatives with cross-functional, cross-enterprise teams under my leadership as a part of my department and team, working with large organizations. And most recently, my last role was SVP of transformation at the largest distributor in the promotional product space. Now, when that role ended, my career throughout had been, really a journey of kind of accomplishment, achievement, and movement. I'd say upward, from a title and role and responsibility standpoint. When that role came to an end, I was really in an interesting place. And so, I'll look forward to sharing more of that. But that's what led me to now be a startup founder. I went through a major pivot, kind of identity shift, if you will, and looking to understand where do I, what do I, who do I, and now how do I in my journey.
So it's so interesting because usually you go from like leader in a company to a consultant, but you did it the exact opposite way. You did consulting first, and then you focused those skills in on a company. How did that work for you? Was it like, did it give you a broad advantage, like just kind of looking at everything and then going specific, or tell me about that?
Yeah, consulting is problem solving. It's client service. It's, finding ways to be resourceful and quickly assess, a situation and figure out how to take action and drive results. All of that lends itself to taking on a leadership role in an organization. Now, my transition was intentional. I knew that I wanted to transition into an industry role. It was just a matter of which organization was that, was the culture, was the environment, was perhaps maybe most importantly, the person I would be reporting to, how was that relationship? Now, she was a female leader, and that really, really appealed to me to have someone, I would consider to be a role model to, I'll say, take me under her wing a little bit and learn from her and how she was navigating. And so, for me, that was compelling. The other thing that I really learned a lot in that move from consulting to industry was taking on true ownership and accountability for a team and results in a different way from consulting. Because when we make recommendations from a consulting standpoint, you're an outsider. And the organization then has to adopt and implement, whatever it is that even if you're a part of that journey, you're not living with those results. And so that's where, I really felt that it was time for me to take ownership in a different way and then live with the decisions that not only was I a part of making and implementing, but that I had to see through to the end with all of my stakeholders. And so it takes on meaning and understanding in a different way, with giving you an appreciation for what it takes to get things done in an organization.
I love that. I think that's kind of neat that you got to see both sides of that and from different angles and at kind of different perspectives in your life. And it probably drove, as we'll probably see as we go through the rest of this interview, like kind of the experiences you took from both of those kind of impacted who you are and where you're at today. So I find that interesting. What is the best investment you've made in yourself, Rose? Is there something you can look back on and you're like, oh, thank goodness I did that?
Well, Yeah, the best investment I made in myself, I would say, is coming through that pivot that I was just referring to when I left my last role. I found someone I connected with and engaged with her as a coach.
Mm-hmm.
And it was an investment. And I was worried, especially in a time when I was in transition.
Mm-hmm.
However, whether it's paid or not, like finding someone who can challenge your thinking at a time when you're in, a pivotal place or contemplating, like having someone challenge you, she really helped me with my mentality and my thinking to transition from what I thought I was or where I was in my career to really tap into my inner me and
Mm-hmm.
sense of purpose. Because I had never, throughout my entire career, it's interesting, like really reflecting back, what do I want? What do I want? So many times we as women prioritize everybody else's needs really above our own. And I felt I was on this invisible path that was propelling me. Yes, I was making decisions all along the way, but to take the stop, the pause, and really say, what do I want? You need to create space, environment, opportunity, and like to really challenge yourself and also get quiet and uncomfortable, like sitting in it and really thinking about that. So I feel like that investment in a coach, and again, this doesn't have to be someone like I happen to pay for a coaching experience, but it could be someone else who you feel is able to really, you have a good rapport with, able to collaborate and kind of go back and forth with, to be introspective. And that's the best investment for me. And it's what led me to where I am right now in my journey.
Mm-hmm. I think that as I kind of reflect back on where I've been, the first years you're learning so much about what you're doing that it kind of keeps you engaged and moving forward. But then when you're on the back half of it, like you've kind of learned all the how-tos and stuff like that, and now you want to feel a purpose, a reason for what you're doing, right? Is that kind of
It completely is. In fact, I took a role at a nonprofit for several months because a part of, my, it was connection to purpose. Many companies, a lot of companies are mission driven, but in a different way, I wanted to feel that connection and purpose. And in those months that I was with the nonprofit, I very much believed in what they were doing. But what happened was I started to recall and reconnect with something that had been with me inside of me for probably, I don't know, over a dozen years, more than that, since I had become a mom, a struggle that I had had with just keeping up with relationships and the people who matter. And so I kept coming back to that like over those years. But then as I was really connecting with purpose and mission at this company, I thought, what about mine? What about my purpose? What about the thing that, is in the back of my mind all these years? And then really that compelled me to want to take action in that way. So yes, there is absolutely, this, I feel as we get to later stages in our lives and our careers, feeling more empowerment, more intention, more purpose, more connection. It's so, so, so important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I find that in a lot of people who have had a long and successful career, that at a certain point they do have to get uncomfortable, challenge themselves a little bit, and start thinking about their why. And are they really fulfilling their highest, best purpose? Yeah, I find
Yes.
that interesting. So, what is the worst advice someone gave you? Do you have some really bad advice that you've gotten, and did you take it or did you not take it?
So this one's interesting. I'm like, what's the worst? I can't pinpoint something that somebody else has advised me of necessarily. Where my mind goes is me.
Okay.
We all
Yeah.
have an inner voice. We all have an inner self-critic. Sometimes it's quieter, sometimes it's louder. And for me, my experiences, I've had a few, quite a few, well, now quite a few, really challenging experiences in life.
Mm-hmm.
I was diagnosed with breast cancer and I came through that journey. All is well now. And I'm very, I'm in a good place, which is wonderful. I went through a divorce. During those times, that voice picks up and your amygdala kicks in and you get into, fight or flight. And in those times, I very much experienced me giving my own self advice. And it was go.
Terrible.
It was terrible. Flight, flee, like leave your job, go do, when we're in times of stress or times of challenge, that voice kicks in and it urges you to maybe make some rash decisions. And so for me, I really do find that some of those worst decisions or advice come from that moment of, holy moly, what am I going to do? Oh my gosh, the world is ending. I don't know what the future holds. And we want to just make that rash decision. And so, what I've learned is to just sit in it, sit still, don't make a rash decision. Wait until you're able to let the emotions, the panic, whatever it may be, subside. And then when you can think more clearly, make the decision. So I have to say it's me. And I work to quell the inner self-critic and that inner voice actively. I'm much better now than, in times of stress, when we're moving through different experiences, it's there very much so. And it's there for good reason because it's looking out for you. But it doesn't mean we have to listen to it, in that moment, in that time that it's really kind of screaming the loudest sometimes.
It's so interesting. Women a long time ago or way back in the podcast recommended the book called Big Magic. And in the book, fear has a place. Fear gets to go on the journey, but fear doesn't get to sit in the front seat. And that seems like your worst advice, right? Your little voice or the big voice in your head. And like, it sounds like in some places, my little kids used to like climb up to the front seat. They would get in such big trouble because they weren't in their seatbelts, but they would climb up to the front seat. And that's what fear was doing during those times, is it was that voice in your head was climbing up to the front seat and yelling in your ear rather than sitting in the back where they belong, being quiet, not being allowed to drive or get the directions.
That's true. It's interesting. It brings to mind my coaching experience and the coach that I had. We talked about all of that little voice. Think of it as a part of your board, your personal board, and it's there for a reason. It has, it's looking out for you. It doesn't want you to be hurt or taking, it wants to protect you from risk or whatever it may be. And so it's there for a reason. But to your point, you're in the driver's seat, you're, the chair of that board. And so all those voices, it's almost like, what's the movie with the feelings?
Yeah, the Disney feelings. I was just thinking of that and I can't for the life of me remember right now.
Right.
But yeah, that exact
fear, sadness, those different emotions, those different voices, they serve a purpose, but ultimately you're the one who needs to, kind of synthesize and take from those and then make the decision.
Yeah. And I like the idea too of kind of, if you're in a really fight or flight response, if you're in a very tense situation, like maybe don't make big decisions. Maybe give it a minute. I like that. What about a do-over? Is there a situation that you can think of along your journey where you're like, oh my gosh, I wish I could go back and do that again because I know so much more now and I would so totally do it differently?
I think every experience is a learning experience, and I think back to some disasters, like even earlier in my career where, I take away from those experiences. One of them early on, I started out as a programmer. I was working on a design and I had to have a code review, like a design review there were at least several, probably 6 different people, men, women, senior programmers. My boss was in the room when we were going through the code, what I had outlined for changes to this program. And I made the changes that I thought needed to be made. And it was very complex. So there was a lot of logic, and if you can imagine, like kind of if statements and nesting and all of that. And some of the feedback that came back was, well, why this is really difficult to read. Why didn't you like redesign it? And I said, I didn't know I could. I was following the outline of the structure that someone else had put in place. And it devastated me because that early in your career, as we talked about, like you're looking to learn and absorb, but you also want to please. It's all about like your validation comes from, how you're being received by others and doing a good job. And so I was devastated. I left that room and I was crying. I went outside and my manager came after me. I didn't know. It didn't occur to me that I could do something differently. Now, would I take a do-over? I mean, yeah, I probably would, but learning from that, it just stuck to me that you don't, just because that's the way it is, doesn't mean that that's the way it has to be, or that you have to align with whatever that standard was that was set.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one sticks with me big time.
I love that. I actually surround myself and my team there at Tandem. We kind of surround ourselves with questioners, with those young people that come in and this is the first time they've seen the processes or the first time they've done the things. And they ask all the questions like, why do we do it like that? Well, why can't we do it like this? Well, why don't we do this, that, or the other thing? And I love those questions because it starts you thinking, well, is this just the way it's always been done? Or is it the best way? Like what's the right answer there? And I love that you came to that. It's kind of probably a hard experience to come to that, but that's the question you came to. Why do I do what you tell me to do just because I should question that? I should ask. I should find out if there's a better, easier, faster, more comprehensible way.
Yes. And it's so, it's interesting because when it's you, we know this, right? We kind of know this. Oh, that's the way it's always been done isn't necessarily an acceptable answer. But when you're in it, when you're experiencing it, right? I know it didn't even occur to me. I was like, well, no, I need to, this is the structure that's there. And so I'm going to make these changes because I have to add and change and update this. And so I just worked with what I had, but it was so eye-opening because, in that moment, I'm like, why didn't I? Why didn't it occur to me?
Yeah. I am so fully supportive of those voices that are asking those questions because it helps all of us get better. It helps all of us. And so I really if I could talk to younger people, I'm always ask the question, always do. Right.
And you know what? Feedback, it's don't take it personally either. It's not personal. Take the feedback and just adapt and learn. That's it.
That's hard, but it's hard.
It is.
Yeah. What about if you could go back and high five yourself for one great financial decision that you made in the past, what would that be?
I know exactly what it would be.
Okay.
Early in my career, you start getting a paycheck and you're thinking, woohoo, actually have some money. My colleague, in fact, we're going to meet here in a couple of months. We're going to meet. He's going to be in Chicago. But at that time, my friend, his name is Asher, he said, Rose, every paycheck, take some of that money, take any amount, and set up an auto deposit to savings or an investment account, something. And just make sure that every time you get a raise, every time you get a bonus, make sure that you're taking some proportionate amount and increasing that over time. That, I'll call it investment or savings strategy. The other thing he told me was max out your 401k, which is, I feel like it's common knowledge, but still many people don't do that. So those, that amount, you're not really going to miss it, especially at earlier stages in life. But then as you, obviously the time value of money over time, it's going to help. So make sure you're saving. And so I absolutely would go back and high five myself and Asher. I'll give him one when I see him in April. I'm going to see him in April. He's in Maryland. And so he reached out to me and I so I'm excited to be able to share that with him and the impact that he made in my life because it's important. And, that saving and being financially able, capable, and independent, especially as young females moving forward in your career, I cannot emphasize enough how important that is for us to be comfortable and feel empowered financially and have access to some, savings and investments.
It gives you a lot more opportunities as you look around and you make decisions based on caregiving responsibilities or based on changes in your living situation or career changes and
Career.
pivots. Yeah, you can make a lot. You have a lot more leeway to make decisions if you have a stash, right? Yeah,
Absolutely. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know what the rule of thumb is, at least accessible, like cash flow savings. Is it 3 months? 3 months
Yeah,
salary or
3 months, 6 months. It just depends on who you talk to, but definitely a cash savings and then some investments for your future. So I think I love that. I love that and this is the part I love the most, Rose, is that your person taught you that at a young age. Like this is stuff that we don't hear or get exposure to a lot of times, even through formal education, but some mentor somewhere thought it was important enough to tell you. And I bet you thought it was important enough that now you've passed that message on.
Yes, yes, yes. Inevitably, we have to learn through our own experiences. We do. Just telling my daughters, I have three, hey, this is what you should do. Okay, mom.
Yeah.
They're going to have to learn. My oldest just started college and budget management, being able to manage to a budget and understanding cash flow and what that means in her expenses on a month to month basis, how she's spending, what she's saving. It's a lesson that we all need to learn. And, thankfully she's 18 and still has, we all still have time no matter how old we are.
Yeah.
But, we do have to learn through our own experiences, but it's so critically important.
Yeah. Yeah. What scared you the most when you started out on your journey? And does it still scare you?
I think for me, what scared me, scared. Well, I guess I'll go a little bit deep here. I think, when we talk about the validation piece, external validation, you know, am I good enough? Will I be good enough? In consulting, moving from assignment to assignment, it can be anxiety inducing,
Mm.
moving from role to role, whatever those new experiences are. Am I good enough? That I think that's probably one that in the back of my mind, always seeking that validation from others that what I'm doing is sufficient.
Mhm.
Now, very much less so. And I think it is, being able to tap into your own like inner you, intention, purpose, and also accepting the fact that we're all human. Nobody is perfect. It's okay to make mistakes. I've made some big ones. And then now to be able to accept that it's okay, no matter what decision you make, if you make a decision and you fail, dwelling on it doesn't help. Just keep moving forward. It's
Mhm.
okay. So I think it's trusting yourself and feeling comfortable in yourself over time that's helped me to quell, that I'll say that fear, if you will, of not being good enough because we're all just human
Mhm.
and you're living your true self. If you're operating with authenticity and showing up in an intentional way, guess what? You're good enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're good enough.
Yeah. I like that idea. And I think that uh, if you reach out, there's so many people that have had those same experiences. They've fallen flat on their face. It's shocking to me how, a lot of my guests are very open and they have failed. And I have failed, and done things in my life that I was like, oh gosh, there's my do over. I wish I could have a do over right there, right? But I think they're willing to share those experiences with you as well so that you can learn from their experience too.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, yeah. Life is a journey, taking learnings from all the experiences, both good and bad, that we have, and then yeah, being able to share those with others who are open to that. I think supporting others, reciprocity, I truly believe in. When we give to others and then we receive, like it's that yin yang, if you will. Yeah, and being open to just learning and continuing forward in the journey.
Hmm. Hmm. Did you face any unique challenges along your path because you were a woman?
Unique. I think as women, we face unique challenges simply being a woman. And then
Yeah.
certainly as I became a mom, balancing career and being a parent,
Mhm.
For sure. I mean, I remember walking into work the first day after my first maternity leave and thinking, oh my gosh, how do people do this? How do people work and be a parent? Because
Mhm.
the responsibility for another human being, I had no idea the appreciation for that only came after I became a parent. And the balancing and the mental load that moms carry in particular, working or not, balancing all of the things it's a challenge. And you're constantly carrying some degree of guilt about not being enough in one way or another. Whether it's, oh, I have to miss a meeting because I want to go to my daughter's play, but then you're feeling guilty about the meeting. Whatever it may be, I feel like we uniquely, women, are kind of we uniquely bear the responsibility of managing a lot of that household and mental load, even when we have completely supportive partners. Something innate to us, we just carry it all.
Mhm.
We carry it with us, and it's very hard to let go. And it also brings up a lot of guilt when we have to make decisions about, trade-offs or priorities.
Yeah. Yeah, it is hard, and those kids, they don't come with any sort of instruction manual, like, "Do this, and this will happen." It's a
Not at
little
all.
trial and error along the way, and yeah. So is there a way that you found that to deal with that unique challenge? Is there anything you found that is helpful?
Two things. One, outsource where possible, where you can, because we can't do it all. Like I truly believe balance is like a fallacy. When people say work-life balance, the scales always tip on one side or the other. And to the degree that we can outsource and get outside help, if you're able to,
Mhm.
or friends and family, it's okay to ask for help. Carpool, relying on carpool, even if it's someone helping you in your house with housework at different times in different stages. Someone gave me that advice, and I look to pass that on to others as well, because there's no medal for best mom. There really isn't. We're not going to get a medal because you folded the laundry and sorted it in just the perfect way. If the laundry gets done, if the dishes get done, or even if they don't, life's going to move on. So outsource where possible. And then the other thing that, I continue to work on is we're always making trade-off decisions. And when we do that, whether it's the example I talked about, I have a meeting, but I also need to go to my daughter's play. So I'm going to go to the play. Okay, when we make a decision one way or the other, let's not beat ourselves up after the fact, because we can only be in one place at one time. And so when you make that decision, be present in that, whatever that decision was in the moment at the play, or if you had to choose the meeting, and don't, shoulda, coulda, woulda. We need to be okay with that and the fact that we can only focus on one thing at a time. And so don't beat ourselves up.
That makes a lot of sense. I like the idea of not beating yourself up after you've made the decision, because you need it, you make it with your best information, the best way you can do it, and then move forward with that and be present in the moment. That's really smart. That's a really good idea.
Well, and it includes you too, because I think of it from three fronts. There's the work front, there's the family front, and then there's the you front. So if you make a decision that you need to do something for yourself, whether it is attend a class, whether it's go to yoga, whether it's get a massage, whether it's read a book, whatever that is, not feeling guilty about that either. Now, granted, emergencies and things will arise, but it's okay, because we need that time for ourselves as well in order for us to be at our best for others around us and our work.
You just blew my mind, honestly. I am like, you can make I make that decision sometimes, and then I am constantly feeling guilty about it. That's something I have to do better at, is to make that decision to do something for me that's going to feed me and feed my soul, and then be okay with that, be present in that moment. Oh, that's so smart. That's how come we need to.
It is a tough one. And what's funny is I look back, like the pre-me, call it V1.0. Now I'm like, am I 2.0 or am I 1.5? Think back on the 1.0, and I used to always default to no. And what I mean by that is people would ask me to do things and I would deprioritize myself. And so I would hesitate to commit to things. And so I would say, no, let me think about it, because I was always worried about making sure that I could accommodate everybody else. And so I never made space for myself. Now I say, Rose, do you want to do that? Yes. If I want to do it, commit to it, you're going to figure out a way and you're not going to feel guilty about it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. And it is a mindset change. Like, it just be present in the decision you made and be okay with that. You made that decision for a reason. It's going to be a good thing in your life for whatever reason. And you need to own that and kind of move forward with it. I like that. What about, Rose, what is the thing you are most proud of?
I have 3 daughters. They're all teenagers.
Lord help you. We'll all.
I know. The thing I'm most proud of is I hope for them to see mom navigating life, holding her head up, being positive, grateful, and doing things that she feels intention behind to make a difference in the world. And I hope that they can take that to know that they can forge their own path. They can step forward and not be certain about what the outcome is, but yet still take those steps. Call it be fearless, right?
Yeah.
Take the steps even without knowing what that outcome is going to be, because they believe in it and that they can move forward and live rich and fulfilling lives. That, for me to be able to, I guess, role model in some way for my daughters, and hopefully at some stage in their lives to be able to say, yeah, to see that in mom, I feel like that's my proudest achievement, would be to raise my 3 girls in a way that allows them to pursue their paths and feel good about it.
I like that you said be fearless, for obvious reasons. But I like that idea of like teaching them that it's okay to be afraid and still try it anyway. And that's something that's really near and dear to my heart. You can't make a difference if you don't try. And sometimes, in fact, all the time, in my case, being fearless is being scared to death of it, but trying it anyway.
That's right.
I love that.
That's right. But it can hold us back. I mean, we can get stuck in that complacency or routine, or, it's predictable. I know what the result is going to be. It's scary.
Mm-hmm.
It is for sure. But you know what? We can take those steps and move forward. And at the end of the day, if we need to make a pivot, we'll make the pivot.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes we fall. Sometimes we don't do it perfectly right. Sometimes we don't do it at all right. And watching our experience with that, trying it and failing and getting back up and trying again, sometimes that's the most valuable experience that they can see too.
It is. And you know what? We only live one life. So at the end of the day, I don't want to be shoulda, coulda, woulda. And I don't want them to be shoulda, coulda, woulda. So it's like, how do we live life in that way?
Mm-hmm. Any advice for a young lady who's kind of just starting down this path that you've been so successful at to help her become successful like you?
I would say connections, relationships matter.
Mm-hmm.
Earlier on in my career, I didn't really I felt like I was on this path, but I didn't really feel that I had a strong mentorship from anyone in particular. But I would say, looking back and along the way, I've been able to develop those types of relationships for people. My former boss that I just mentioned, the one that I left consulting for, we still are in touch today, supporting one another. It's wonderful. So develop those relationships and don't be afraid to reach out to other women, maybe who've experienced some of the same the path that you want to follow, or you're just LinkedIn is a huge way to get visibility to other women. But reach out, make those connections, and just be open to that feedback. And yeah, I think having that support can make a big difference. Not feeling alone.
Yeah, I like that. I like the idea of connections. I always felt like when you started out, I felt like you just work hard, and things will work out. But as I've gone along the path, sometimes work hard doesn't always work because you're in a lonely place or you're in a pivotal place and you don't have those relationships, those people to pass these ideas. What should I do? Like, can you help? Is there any advice you can give me? And I've come to find that those connections that you're talking about, those are so much more valuable. They really are more valuable than any other skill or work ethic or anything else, which is all important, but those are the most important things to
They
take into your
are.
journey.
They are. And especially women, I think we have a tendency to think that we put our head down, we do hard work, and it's just going to get noticed. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. So yeah, I think those relationships are important in helping you to also see things from an outside perspective.
Yeah, I love it. Well, thank you so much, Rose, for taking this time and just sharing your journey and sharing your experience. I really appreciate it. If I have a young lady who wants to get in touch with you, how does she do that?
Find me on LinkedIn. Just send me a message, reach out. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks, Lorie.